Hey guys, we're here with Tai Lopez, and for those of you who don't know who Tai is, Tai's an entrepreneur, an investor, a philanthropist, an advisor, and he's got a book club with over 1 million people following him, and not only does he have over 1 billion views on YouTube, but he has, more importantly, over 450 million minutes watched on his YouTube views. So it's great to be here with you, and let's dive a little bit deeper into sort of your quick background on where you got started, because I know you have a really interesting story, and how you got to where you're at today, and then we'll go from there.
So I'm from Long Beach, where you're from. Born there, single mom. My dad was actually in prison in Long Beach. There's an island called Terminal Island. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's a little island outside of Long Beach. And so I grew up around, single mom, and didn't really learn much about business or being an entrepreneur. Went through the school system. I learned what the California state bird was and stuff like that. But once I got out of high school, I had a choice course going to college, and there's that poem, Robert Frost. There was a fork in the woods, two paths in the woods, and you took the path less tread upon, and that made all the difference. Instead of going to college, I'm not totally against college, but what I did, I went and did an apprenticeship for 2 years with this guy named Joel Salatin on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Swope, Virginia. And it was my first mentor, really began to train me. I launched my first business, made 12 grand in 1 year. Luckily, it's been all uphill after that 12 grand. But that was cool, and then I took that money, that profit, and I started traveling the world, meeting mentors, trying to find out the shortcuts. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, everybody you meet will become a millionaire by age 180. That's the problem. We run out of years because our learning curve is too short. So most of them, I lived with the Amish for 2.5 years. I started got in the nightclub business. I got in wealth management. I worked for the biggest corporation in the world for a little while. I just experimented, kind of like a mad scientist. And out of a lot of experiments, when you're going to get big results. And little by little, some experiments fail, some win. You start to get enough wins, creates a little tidal wave effect. And so now, now my current experiment is here in Beverly Hills. Now doing a lot of stuff, social media stuff, doing a lot of investing, get ready to start like a show kind of like Shark Tank. Mark Cuban was here the other day. I won't compete with you, Mark. Don't get mad at me. This is going to be more of a Snapchat one. But, yeah. So is that...
That's perfect, brother. That's a great answer. And one of the things that I love, and it was like a paradigm shift for me when it comes, because I love reading books, is your concept and idea behind reading a book a day. So expand on that. What is your concept? Why do you read a book a day? Because there's so many people that are like, oh, he reads a book a day. And it's like, when I heard you talk about it, I was like, oh, that's actually a genius way to look at it.
Right. We'll put it this way. Rich people read. Everything else is bullshit. Mark my words. I interview a lot of badasses come through my house. And I ask all of them. And without, like Mark, he was just here, we were playing basketball. He reads 2 hours a day. He didn't talk about it that much. Warren Buffett reads 800 pages a day. Do the math on that. I'm way behind with my lame book a day stuff. He's been doing 800 pages a day since he started Berkshire Hathaway in the 1960s. And it made him $70 billion, and it made him happy, and he does what he loves. Will Smith, I got to hang out with. I posted a little thing, and my favorite quote of Will Smith's said to be badass, you have to do 2 things. One, you have to run. The second, you have to read. You run because when you run long enough, your lungs feel like they're going to explode, and if you can push through that and keep running, you'll be able to push through any obstacle. And the reason he said reading, he said because a lot of smart people have gone ahead of you, and they've already been through whatever problems you're experiencing. So instead of learning from your own mistakes, you can learn from theirs. That's what Warren Buffett says. He says, it's true that you only learn from mistakes, but they don't have to be yours. That's the biggest flaw that I see people, or biggest mistake I see people making, whether they're entrepreneurs or just employees or single moms or whatever you might be, if you try to do the learning curve all with your own experience, you will run out of life. You'll be 140 before you have a lot of money. You'll be 140 before you figure out how to read people, keep the good ones, get rid of the bad ones. You'll be 140 before you figure out how to diet. People, I'm not even diet, how to stay fit, man. Most people, they become fit when it's too late. I live here in Beverly Hills. There's a lot of 90-year-old dudes rolling around in Ferraris. And I always said, I don't want to be a 90. By the time you're 90, you don't care about Ferraris. 90, you should be hanging out with your grandkids,
Yeah.
You're going to like a Ferrari when you're 20, 30, or 40. But the learning pattern, the curve that most people are on, it's just, the curve is so long out there that I'm like, bro, I always say the biggest curse, if you had an enemy and you wanted to curse them, okay? And let's exclude health curses or death, okay? Assuming you couldn't do those. I know the best curse ever. I would just say, everything you try to do will take you 9 times longer than it should. This is like hell on earth for me. Somebody goes, I'm going to start a business. Well, the average person can make this successful in 3 years. You're going to do it 9 times slower. So 27 years from now, you'll have a successful business.
Nobody would do it.
Yeah, and then what'd be the best blessing if you have kids or friends, or even we want to give a blessing to yourself? Best blessing you could ever say is everything you put your hand to, you'll be 9 times faster. Because I played chess. You can see my little chess thing over there. Twice a week, one of the top chess players in the world comes here, and I play against them, train against them, and life is like speed chess, not regular chess. In regular chess, you can take a long time for a move, but in real life, just think about Netflix. I always think about Netflix. It's one of the most powerful businesses ever built, at least right now, in terms of how many people use Netflix. You have, I forget what it's, 40, 50 million people paying them 10, 20 bucks a month, or 10, 15 bucks a month. It's a crazy business, and it's very simple, and anybody could have done it. If you're watching this and you're over 20, you or someone around you, your parents, could have come up with that idea. It's not a genius. You go, would you rather have to go get movies at a store like Blockbuster used to be, or you want them delivered to you either by mail or streaming right in your phone? I mean, it's a no-brainer. And what Reed Hastings did, the founder of Netflix, was he was faster than other people. Somebody else would have come up with it. Mark Zuckerberg was faster to build Facebook. If Mark Zuckerberg lived in a vacuum and the world all revolved around him, he could have taken another 10 years and no one else would have built one. But he realized, someone else is going to beat me to this. So you have to be quick. And if you don't read, I love it because I'll always beat you. That's what I say to people. I don't mean that in a cocky way. I'm just do the math.
Yeah. So in addition to having the great habit of reading a book every day, what would you say are some of the other rituals and habits that you have that above all contribute to your success?
Well, I think for you listening, you have to train. And this is, I talk on different things and I kind of get on different angles in life. And the one I'm really focused on talking about now is everybody you meet wants stuff. I did a TEDx talk. It's actually, that one we could have put in the intro. I think it's the fastest growing TEDx talk ever. Besides, there's a beatbox one that's faster. But that one doesn't have any words in it. But it's like number 18 right now. And it grows really fast. But in there, I start out by saying everybody wants the good life, but not everybody gets the good life. And I'll tell you the simplest reason, and books fall under this as a subcategory of what I'm about to say. When you meet somebody who goes, hey, I suck at basketball, or hey, I'm fat, and you say to them, do you train? You already know the answer. No. If you don't train your body, if you don't train your diet, if you don't train at basketball, you won't get it. There's never been somebody who magically walked on a basketball court, never picked up a basketball, grabs it, and starts hitting three-pointers like Steph Curry. It just doesn't happen. Yet that's how people perceive their success. And there's a lot of stuff out there that is leading people, not necessarily misleading on purpose, but it's the wrong track. You know, the book The Secret, it's a great book. I'm not anti-secret, but it's not really the right track. The right track, the secret is what I just told you. Train. If you just positively chant to yourself, I'm great at basketball, I will always be good at basketball. You ain't gonna become good at basketball. If you look at your stomach and go, I will have a six pack, it never changes based on, now it's okay, you need positive affirmations for other reasons, for motivation and stuff, but the superseding factor, the one that trumps all, the hand that trumps all cards, the royal flush or whatever, is training. And people really struggle with that. They go, why do you read? Well, that's how you train your brain. Why do you play chess? That's how you train your brain. Why do you do public speaking? Well, then you train your mind to be able to think in the moment, quickly, be witty, whatever you have to do. And so whatever you want, I can pretty much predict whether you'll get it or not by you just texting me, here's how much I train. And then the second thing, which comes under that, is who do you train with? Like, who's your pedigree? Dolph Lundgren, you know who he is? You ever seen Rocky IV? He'll be here in a few minutes. We're doing a business project together. You know, in those Rocky movies, you have the trainer, and you want the best trainer. That's your pedigree. When Ron Artest, I was telling you Ron Artest was playing, Ron Artest won a championship with the Lakers 2010. I had a shot over him in one-on-one. If you guys want to see it.
We were talking about that. You'll have to slice that in.
Yeah, go on my Instagram. We'll have to slice that in. No, I'm just kidding. But Ron Artest, he didn't get his championship till he played under the coach, Phil Jackson, in 2010. So your pedigree matters. So some people don't train, and they fail. Other people do train, but they train under the wrong people. But mark my words, if you don't train, you're going to guaranteed you won't hit your potential. And if you don't train under the right people.
100%.
Yeah, so for me now, it's all like finding the right people. I mean, I do Muay Thai. I train under Joe Schilling. He was 3-time world champion, Muay Thai, 2-time kickboxing. Got the fastest knockout in U.S. history. When you're fighting with that dude, you learn 10 times faster. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Henry Gracie, Higan Machado. Higan Machado went 350-0. 8 years as a heavyweight in Sambo, Judo, Wrestling, Jiu-Jitsu. No one could beat him. It was probably at one time the best pound-for-pound fighter ever. So when I train under him, he's got pedigree. I can be like, I can never beat this dude. You know, he's got a coral belt, which is like black and red. Only 10, 20 people in the world have.
So does that mean we're going to see you in the ring soon?
No, I'm not. I don't want to be. I sparred the other day with a UFC fighter. My nail got caught under the tape and ripped right off in the first second, my big toenail.
So you're done now.
I was submitted by the tape on the... No, we kept fighting. Brian Ortega, he's good.
You got that footage you can cut in here, too.
What do they call him, T3?
T-City.
Oh, T-City. Because he triangle chokes you. He triangle choked me a couple of times. But, once again, that's all training against... So he's a UFC fighter. Whenever I train against those guys, and then I go, and like one of my friends, I was like, hey, I'll spar with you. It's like sparring against, a corpse. You can beat their ass in 1 second because when you train against the best and under the best, then life becomes much simpler. And people feel like they have a lot of adversity in life. And I'm like, well, you're not training against the best. Once you train against the best and you come out back into the regular world, Warren Buffett says, when he trained under a guy named Benjamin Graham. Benjamin Graham is probably the most famous stock market analyst. He invented modern theory on investing in the stock market. And so Warren Buffett was a young guy, trained under him, and then went to work for him. And when Warren Buffett, because he was around this guy and such high-level traders and investors, he thought everybody in the world was like that. And he said, once I came back into the real world, I was like, nobody's good. And that's why he went on, and if you had invested $10,000 with him in the 1960s, you'd have $50 million right now. Versus if you invested 10 grand in gold, you'd have 500,000.
So you let me know when you get the time machine set up.
There you go. That's all you need to do. Get 10 G's, go back to Warren Buffett, drop 10,000, and you'll have 50 million today. I like that.
So we're talking about training, and you've gotten to such a pinnacle of success that I know you're going to keep surpassing as an influential leader. You've got over 1 million people in your book club. So what tips do you have for people listening right now, in the areas of being an influential leader? I don't think enough kids nowadays, if you look at the stat, I think it's 85% of hiring managers don't think that millennials are ready to step into management and leadership positions. So what advice or tips do you have that you've been trained on for how people can be a better influential leader?
Well, I think first thing you have to know yourself. There's different types of leaders. There's a book called Quiet, which is the power of introverts. Some of you might be an introvert watching this. So when you think of yourself as a leader, you go, oh, I'm not that traditional charismatic leader. Good news is you don't have to be. There's lots of different types of leaders. But where you become a non-influential leader is where you try to adopt a style that's not you. If you are a quiet introvert, you can lead quietly. Bill Gates is one of the prototypical quiet introvert leaders. And he was the richest man in the world for 17 years in a row. He had 100,000 plus employees following him. But once you know yourself, I actually came up with a personality type system that I'm building out with a couple scientists called PACE. So 4 letters, P-A-S-E. P stands for practical, A for action, S for social, and E for emotional. All of us have all 4 of those types, but we have a dominant and a weak and then 2 in between. So my strongest first letter is A. So I'm action, second is P, practical, third is E, emotional, fourth is S, social. That means my style of leadership will be more like military style. A is action-based person, is more like, I like jiu-jitsu and boxing and all that kind of stuff. I think of business more like the art of war, but you might not. Because my weakest energy is the S. Even though I am social, if you're a social person, you're going to be more like a jolly leader. You're going to be like a funny leader. In fact, Warren Buffett in some ways is kind of a funny leader. If you're an E, quiet, that's what Bill Gates is. He gets a small group of people around him, and then he leads through a small group. Because introverts generally do well with small groups that they have deep relationships with. He had Steve Ballmer. Before Steve Ballmer, he had Paul Allen. And you notice Steve Ballmer, as the CEO of Microsoft, was the A and the loud one. But Bill Gates was still the boss man. And if you're a P type, practical, that's kind of more down to earth, a little more boring. People think it's boring, but those are actually the ones that tend to get the richest if you care about money. You can have your own style, which is usually more of a strategic style. You have plans, you have Excel spreadsheets, and you have it all mapped out. On day 317 of this business, we'll wake up at 9:33 and do this. All those 4 styles can work, but if you don't know which one is your style, because this is another thing that they forgot to teach us in school, it's called psychometrics. That's the actual term that scientists use. The psychometrics means personality typing. There's different personality types. There's Hexaco and Colby and Strength Finder, and Hexaco is the most scientific. Myers-Briggs, all these. I have the system I use, which I find to work really well. If you can figure out who you are and then maximize that way, do a lot of it. So if you're a P and you're practical, do a lot of planning. That's how you lead. If you're action like me, I launch a lot of stuff. If you work for me, it's like a whirlwind. Like every day, there's 10. Even in my house right now, you can see we got this going in the office. We have a live stream in my garage. A guy teaching how he did 2.7 million in T-shirts last year. I got Abigail Ratchford, one of the biggest Instagram models in the world, in my guest house shooting. I think she took the Ferrari. She's shooting in the front. She didn't drive. She didn't drive. And then Dolph Lundgren's here. But that's my style. And you don't have to try to do my style. In fact, if you're not an action person, you try my style, you'll fail, just like if I try those other styles. But knowing yourself is a powerful tool. That's what Socrates said thousands of years ago.
So if somebody who's running multi-million-dollar companies and advising multi-million-dollar companies, and a few sentences, what is some of the best business advice? And I know I've been asked this question, it's so hard to answer, but what is some of the best business advice you've ever received, and how has it served you?
Well, I'll give you advice that I came up with that's a compilation of lots of smart people giving me their opinion, and I've amalgamated it into one. If you want to make $1 million business, you need to hang out with people that making $1 million business would be very embarrassing for them. If you want to make a $5 million business, you got to hang out with people that if they only made $5 million in a year, they'd have a heart attack. And I've been through all those stages. When I made my first business, made 12 grand, Joel Salatin would have had a heart attack had he only made 12 grand. I don't know how much he was making back then, but a lot more than that. And when Mark Cuban's over here and I'm talking to him about business ideas and we're strategizing on things, it raises my barometer. It resets my barometer. I don't want to say, hey, Mark, I got an idea how we can make $1 million. He made $3 billion. It ain't going to be an exciting conversation with him. I got to hang out with Elon Musk a couple times this year, and I was just talking to him. We had a fairly long conversation the other day at the, what was that at, Nathan? Oh, Hail Caesar at the premiere. It's pretty cool. I went with Dolph Lundgren, and we got there and talked. George Clooney was all on the red carpet because I was with Dolph. I'm not a movie star, but then we went to sit down for the premiere, and I'm like, Elon Musk is sitting next to us. It's funny, in the last 6 months, I've bumped into Elon 3 times. We've got to talk. But this last time I talked to him for longer, and one thing I realized, he's a man worth $14 billion. He's 44. When you talk to him, subconsciously, it's resetting your barometer. And you can't always do that. When I was starting out, I was on a farm in the middle of Virginia. I wouldn't be able to reach out to Elon Musk, which is part of the reason I like books. Because then instead of being there, you can just read that Ashley Vance just put out a book where you can connect with Elon through the pages of the book. But if you're not doing that, and what I find most entrepreneurs do, and I've been guilty of this too, because we're proud, most entrepreneurs are pretty proud. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably doing better than average financially. Although statistically, believe it or not, the average entrepreneur makes less than the average employee. The average entrepreneur, according to the IRS, they call them solo businesses or something, where just one person makes 40-some grand, and the average person in America makes 50. So if you are one of those that are performing at a higher level, pride ends up wiping you out because you don't want to hang out with people that make you feel uncomfortable. And I see this all the time, man. It's crazy. You guys will see this. As you start to rise up, instead of more people admiring you, more people are going to hate you. Trust me.
100%.
Gandhi has that. Gandhi has that saying. First they ignore you because they don't know who you are. Then they laugh at you. Then they hate you. And if you're lucky, you get to the final stage. Then they love you. Then you reach icon status. But when you're still on the rise, what we all do, you protect yourself by hanging out with people on your level. And that's what I talk about in my TEDx talk, the law of 33%. If you can spend 33% of your day around people who are where you want to be in 20 years, they don't necessarily have to be older than you. In fact, sometimes they're younger than you. But where you see yourself in 20 years, they're already there. Think about Elon Musk. That's where I would like to be in 20 years. Maybe I don't know if I can do it faster, but if you can have $14 billion, 14,000 million, have 3 companies that you run. He's the only guy alive right now to have started 3 companies simultaneously valued at over $1 billion. People say he's super busy. Every time I see Elon Musk, we're both at the movies, so he ain't that busy. And that resets barometer. You got to find what's going to reset yours. If you don't, then your barometer will hit mediocrity. And that's kind of like hell on earth.
Don't want that.
You look back and you go, I always think, what is hell on earth? Looking back and going, I could have, and I didn't. That's about as bad as life gets. I mean, it could get worse. There's other things, but Psychologically, that's one of the worst.
So on the flip side, talking about hell on earth,
Yeah.
let's talk about the good life. But real quick, we're talking about reading books and investing in ourselves to get better and learn from other people's experiences. And I call it Shorten the Gap, the name of my brand. And at the time when I wrote this book, Shorten the Gap, I had invested around $150,000 in my education, working with some of the top mentors, reading a lot of the best books, attending masterminds and events, and I broke down and really synthesized a lot of that information at what I thought at that point in my life, out of all the investing I've done, of how to live what you call the good life. So although my book has about 37 ingredients, so to speak, for living the good life, what are some of the best tips that you would say really are essential for living the good life?
My friend, I was just up in San Francisco, and we were talking. This dude's, no joke, entrepreneur, one of the top entrepreneurs in the world. His business it wasn't making $1 million a day. I'm not sure what it's making right now, but it is big. It was going public. They decided not to go public. And he's a very intelligent guy. He got it. I think he won in high school. He won the math contest of the world. The world math contest. It was like in Oslo, Norway. And then he went on and got his PhD at Berkeley in data. And it's his specific, and he worked at NASA before he became an entrepreneur. And I asked him once about his PhD. And he said, well, Ty, I got my PhD in multi-objective planning. How do you optimize multiple goals? You got a PhD in this. I said, well, what's the answer? What's the sum? And he goes, my whole PhD was bullshit. You can't do multi-objective optimization. If you're an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur, all of us have this idea that we can optimize many, many objectives. And this. You can have many sub-goals, but you have to have one overriding way to optimize your life. For me, going back to your question, ever since I heard that a few years ago from Alex, started really thinking. It takes a long time. I have a little exercise. We don't have time to do it. It's very nasty when I do it on people, because people will tell me their one goal in life, raise a family, this, and it almost always breaks down under interrogation. Like whenever I was doing that in New York, people were like traumatized. One dude's like, I've been traumatized for 3 weeks after you did that. And it's not me really doing anything, it's just cutting to the truth. For me at this current point, what I try to do to live the good life, and you can try something like this. You have your one objective. For me, it's heaven on earth. I'm not a spiritual expert. Some of you might be. You might know exactly what happens after we die. I don't know. But I do know one thing for sure. Some people experience heaven on earth, and a lot of people experience hell on earth. And therefore, I want to optimize for that. Everything I do, I basically ask myself that. It's getting me closer to feeling like, and that's a feeling that you have. Humans are I'm pretty logical, or I like to pretend I'm logical, but at the end of the day, we're pretty feeling and emotion based. I go, anything. If somebody says in my office, I got a couple offices, but one of my offices here, I have 70 full-time employees. Sometimes they'll go, Ty, this will make us an extra $10 million a year, or whatever, 20 million. And I'm going, my first thing, since my objective isn't money, that's not my prime objective, it becomes a sub-goal. Underneath my prime objective, I have these 4 pillars that hold it up. Health, wealth, love, and happiness. You do have to have money and to have options. No money, no options. You want a life with no options? Be broke. But I first asked myself, is doing that. Like, I read Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins. And he's a different person than me, personality type. And I read he goes out on the road, or someone, my friend, works for him. Tony Robbins goes on the road like 300 days of the year, doing talks around the world. That's hell on earth to me. I already tested that. Even once a week out doing, and I started doing conferences and stuff. Once a month might feel like heaven on earth. Once a week is hell on earth. But for him, clearly, it isn't. So I don't think this is going to make me more money. I think this is going to bring me closer to heaven on earth. And when you build an objective, yours might be different than mine. When you build an objective like that, completely changes all your life. Mark my words, you will never be the same. Most people are optimizing lots of different objectives. They're going, well, I want this, okay, job, do what you love, and find a wife or a husband, and this and that. And all those are great sub-objectives for me. But a lot of people get married and experience hell on earth. A lot of people go after that job that they think they would love, and then you ask them 3 years later, it's hell on earth. Optimize for that, pivot around that. Very powerful. I wish someone had told me that at 18. There ain't that many smart people.
And that's great advice. And you lead me right into another question that I'm really curious about. Is you just said you wish you knew that at 18. So if you could go back into the past and give yourself advice, let's say in college, right? 18 years old and older. You dropped out. So if you could go back to around that age of plus or minus a few years of 18, what advice would you give yourself in addition to this new concept you have around focusing on how to create heaven on earth? What advice would you give your younger self?
I would probably really focus hard on the learning curve. I would, at that point, when I was 18, it's a little different goal. I think your goals can change. I don't know if I would say heaven on earth, because at 18, you need to go through a little hell on earth. You need to train. Sometimes when you're training, it feels like hell on earth. I went and lived with the Amish for 2.5 years, no electricity, horses, wake up at 4 in the morning. Sometimes that stuff was hard. So at 18, I think my optimization would be learn 9 times faster than everybody else. The average entrepreneur takes 12 to 20 years to build a successful business. That's the real hardcore statistics. My second mentor told me that when I was pretty young. Alan Nation told me when I was maybe 20. He said, here's the stats, 12 to 20 years. And that, thank God, he kind of got me on that track. But nobody said it as bluntly as 9x. 9x. So if the average person, what's a ninth of 12? Roughly 1.5 years. And of 20, so if someone had said, look, there's steps you can take to build a successful business in 1.5 to 3 years. Now, it's not going to be your best. You always should get better. But you could build what takes people 12 years, you could do in a year and a half. Man, if somebody had, and then if they had said, it's not just what you teach people. This is one thing I've learned. And you can even use this for yourself. You can read your book, podcast, you can watch my videos. Only when you have motivation do you accomplish stuff. I'll talk about that in a second, because that's the second thing. So someone had been able to convincingly show me the reward of cutting the learning curve. For example, if somebody had showed me a picture of Evan Spiegel, of course, this is before Evan Spiegel. Evan Spiegel started Snapchat. He's the youngest, he lives right down the street. He's the first billionaire under 24, self-made ever. He dates, what's that girl he dates? He's got that supermodel girlfriend. I mean, he lives a good life. You would want to be Evan Spiegel. If somebody had incentivized me that way and said, look, this could be yours if you can cut the learning curve. What?
Miranda Kerr.
Yeah, Miranda Kerr. Victoria's. Wasn't she Victoria's Secret?
Yeah.
Something like that. If somebody had motivated me that way, you're smart. Let me tell you this. If you're watching and you're young, your IQ peaks at 14. Now, a lot of dumbasses try to argue with me on this. It's true. It's called the Stanford-Binet test. It's the IQ test. Alfred Binet found this in the 1800s, and modern scientists have found this now. Your IQ peaks at 14. There's another part of your IQ that continues to rise. It's like experiential IQ or something. This is the disaster in the world. Around 14 is when you're in 7th, 8th grade. You should be optimizing those kids to live a badass life. And instead, you're learning the California State Bird. You should learn the California State Bird at 40. You should learn it at some point in your life. But trust me, you should not learn it before you learn how to not procrastinate. There should be a class called How to Not Procrastinate, the science. There's an exact science. I don't really procrastinate that much. Sometimes, and one of my mentors, Joel Salatin, he has zero procrastination. That's why he's written 14 books. You could, Helen Keller was blind, mute, deaf. She wrote 7 books. I look at myself, I'm like, Tai, get it together. You got so much more natural advantage and you're still falling behind. This is a course that someone could have taught me. So the first one would be cut learning curve, and the second thing I wish someone had taught me would be motivation. You can learn how to motivate yourself. That's a whole nother talk. Maybe we'll do it on another podcast. The 4 M's of motivation.
I love it. So we were talking earlier, you said running and reading was Will Smith's advice.
Smith.
And we're in your office, library, and you've got a treadmill. So you must have took that to heart.
I actually had that before I had to go. I read a book that says you should walk 3 to 6 miles a day. Sitting kills. Believe it or not now, I don't even sit or go on the treadmill. Now I'm pretty active. What I try to do now, I train most of the time, most of the day, so when I read, I lay down. It's better for your body. Sitting is bad, but I do like that. Do you use a treadmill?
I do, at the gym, not in my office.
Not in the office.
Not in the office.
I never sit at this desk, except when I do these interviews. This is a fake Hollywood set. No, I mean, I sit here once in a while.
I'm super curious. You've got so much memorabilia in the house and in the office. As we end it, I want to end it with what's one of the craziest experiences you've ever had, either with a celebrity or just out of all the crazy things you've done.
Think of some recent. I did some stuff. Dude, my last couple months has been a blur. It literally starts to blur. I was at the Grammys Sunday a couple days ago. Then I went to Playboy Mansion after party. That was pretty cool. The week before, yeah, that was good. Played one-on-one. Played Chris Paul. Last month, I played 2 NBA guys one-on-one. I worked out with Dolph Lundgren. I went. The NFL flew me up to the Super Bowl. The NFL flew me up, Super Bowl, put me on the media bus. That was pretty cool. Although it wasn't the best Super Bowl, it was pretty cool. Went down on field there with what's his name, the quarterback that didn't do so well. Cam Newton. He's a big dude. But I don't know, bumping into Elon Musk a lot this year. Bumping into freaking Elon Musk everywhere. Yeah, now he recognizes me because we talk about books. I said I was at the Golden Globes and at the HBO party. He was there, and I talked to him before, and we're talking about books. And I'm like, "What's your favorite book?" And he said, "The Hobbit." No, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. Not what I expected. But then I have a little video on it. His answer was so freaking interesting. I'll tell you something interesting. Using the techniques that I've talked about of reading people and reading yourself, I can show you how you can get billionaires to come up to you. I've tested on Elon Musk twice, tested on lots of people. That's kind of a crazy experience. Where like I walk away and Elon Musk follows me and asks me a question. Like, yo. Oh, I know. Here's my favorite. I got the best one. This is good. Where's my phone? Let me see my phone. There's an old saying that I live by. It's not mine. It's a proverb. It says, "See him who is skilled in what he does, he'll stand before kings, not average men." I went to the AFI Awards. If you want to go to any award in Hollywood, fuck the Grammys, Academy Award, all that, because those are big. AFI Awards is the shit. If you get in there, you're in a room with 100 people, 90 of them are A-list people. And because it's so tight, you can talk to anybody because everybody thinks you're A-list, even if you're not, right? So I know J.J. Abrams a little bit, who did Star Wars, but Steven Spielberg is kind of like a god in this city. And I've met him once before, but at the AFI Awards, this was last month, I went up to him, and we were talking for a little bit, and then I said, let's shoot a little video, some pictures. So I did. I shot some pictures, and I know how to burst really. I got a little technique that I do with selfies. And he goes, and so then I walk away, and he follows me, and he's like, "Hey man, how do you do the camera like that?" And so now I got all these video friends that went to school. They're cinematographers. They spent 10 fucking years. And when I go to a movie, I'm like, you know who Steven Spielberg asked for camera advice? Me. It makes him so mad. I've become the most annoying man with that story. But what I thought, the real lesson from that is how humble is Steven Spielberg that he's the king of camera. I mean, he's one of the best camera guys. He's a billionaire producer, director. To have the mentality that the first thing you're going to do is ask a nobody like me, hey, you know something I don't? How can I learn that? And he's in his 60s. I'm like, this dude is where we should be, you know? So,
That's a good point.
there you go.
Well, hey, I appreciate you sharing the advice and the knowledge with our audience.
Cool.
And last question, brother, where can people learn more about you?
You know, follow me on Snapchat. Snapchat's the shit now. Tai Lopez and the number 1. Or you can just go to my website, tailopez.com. But I snap a lot. My Snapchat, you'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff. People like it. It snapped a lot.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're out.
Boom. Thank you.